Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Question Time Live. I hope you're all looking forward to it again, as I am. Not going to lie, if I'm looking a bit tired this evening, it's a bit of a slog at the minute. I'm not going to lie, sort of feeling it a little bit. We've got a huge week we've sort of been prepping for at Koi Wholesale. It was only a month ago that we had a shipment. I've got it written down here just to give you some kind of perspective of what we're working with. It was just, literally a month ago that we had 161 box shipment of koi in, which was 13,200 fish altogether, and 2.68 tons in weight. And we've got a colossal amount of fish going out this week to dealers all over the country. And on Friday, this is what I'm getting tired actually thinking about it, to be honest. On Friday, we've got a colossal, just this absolute monster shipment in, 225 boxes this time, 16,300 fish, and 4.1 tons in weight. I think it's fair to say the whole team's probably going to be flat out on their arse next week, to be honest with you. So, looking forward to it. It's always fun getting a shipment in, but just a crazy amount of work getting sort of ready for it. And just a mental time of year as the season's coming close for everybody, and everything just ramps up. So as always, thank you to everyone's support, even the viewers on the channels, all the dealers buying the fish. It all keeps it going. So absolutely fantastic. And just two sort of moments I want to take. If you're watching this, please hit the share button to get this out to as many people as possible. Get them all tuned in, no matter what channel you're on. And I presume, or if you haven't, I'm also one of the co-founders of Koi Talk magazine. If you haven't already seen it, this is it, printed magazine, absolutely superb quality, full of awesome content, pictures, everything in there for anybody. Any koi keeper at any level is going to enjoy what we've got to offer in the magazine. If you haven't subscribed already, today I'm going to offer you a code. We'll stick that up on the screen. If you bang this code in over on koitalk.com to subscribe, you'll get your first issue absolutely free. So please, it's a great project. And again, if you haven't seen the Koi Talk YouTube channel as well, pop on over there, because me and Chris do some great content. But really, we want the support with the magazine to keep bringing this information to you all as much as possible. So jump on over and get yourself signed up. You will not be disappointed. So moving on to today's question time, we've got another one of my dealers on this week. And as well as that, we're going to spend some time towards the end going through some of the questions that you send in as well. So if we want to get straight into it, we've got Stuart from CN Koi. How are you doing, Stu?
Yeah, not so bad, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, good, mate. Flagging a bit, but hanging on in there.
Busy time for you at the minute, isn't it?
Yeah, wild, mate, wild.
Yeah, I think everybody's in the same boat, to be honest. We're all busy pre-ordering and getting stuff in, you know. So
it is competitive world, isn't it, buddy?
It can be, especially the next 4 months. It's going to be competitive.
It's crazy. So, do you just want to give everyone a bit of background on yourself and CN Koi?
Yeah, we've been at the Claremont Garden Centre now for just about over a year. I've been in the industry about 25, 30 years. As a hobbyist, in total, about 40 years. But sort of making a living out of it, it's a totally different ballgame to just being in the hobby, you know.
It is.
It's all right looking after 10, 15, maybe 25 fish, but when you're looking after thousands, it's all sorts of problems come forward.
It tests you.
So,
happy days.
Yeah, that's it.
So, what questions have you got lined up then, buddy?
Mainly on the parasite issues, Rick. I have so many people come into the shop. My fish is doing this, my fish is doing that. It's clamped up, it's sulking, it's laying on the bottom, it's flicking, it's flashing, rail scales, that sort of issues, you know. I mean, most of the stuff that I come across, I mean, I'm sure yourself the same, is sort of 5 really bad parasites that hit the koi industry. First being white spot, second Costia, thirdly Chilo, then we go on to flukes, and then trichodina. So all various parasites can give you different problems, different symptoms on your fish.
Absolutely.
It's just a situation where when you get your fish in, Rick, what's your process of going through different variations with parasites and
so here's one. I think, I can't remember if it was last week we touched on I think it was just like people using general treatments, which is something I'm really sort of keen to sort of say it's definitely not the way to be going. Again, you're sort of over medicating and unnecessary medication, not the one really. No. So in regards to what we do, we as with all, this is a process for new fish, existing fish, everything. We are proactive in what we do, obviously being in the industry and not just a hobbyist. Our ponds and the environments are not as stable. There's constantly a lot of upheaval in there, as you all know. Over a weekend you'll be netting a lot, or over the week catching a lot, moving fish in and out, and just a lot of stuff going on. Which causes a lot of stress, so we choose to be proactive, and the team, at the beginning of every week, goes across the entire site, just doing mucus biopsies, random samples out of every pond, just to be proactive. That's with absolutely everything. But from a sort of hobbyist perspective, with parasite or new fish coming in, it's exactly the same. We let them in. We give them a week resting. Now, unless something looks like it's struggling or looks ill, we leave them alone and then just take biopsies regardless of how they're looking after a week.
I think that's important. That settling in period, Rick, isn't it? I think a lot of people, they buy the fish off a dealer, take it straight home, put it in the quarantine tank, and say, right, they don't even scrape half of them. It's quite astounding, really, to be honest. And then they end up chucking the shelf all over the fish just to make sure,
That's the bit I can't. I mean, it's this all comes down to, again, it's sort of like the education, but I think microscopes are so cheap to buy now. You can get really basic things for less than the cost of an half decent koi.
Of course.
A basic koi, even, to be honest. So to have one to learn, I think it's so easy to learn how to use a microscope as well, because the only thing you do actually need to learn how to do is focusing on the mucus properly. Get the right settings, which if you're buying one off of your koi dealer, I'm sure every dealer out there is going to spend a bit of time teaching you how to use it as well.
Cool.
So it's quite easy to get. All you need to do is learn how to focus on the mucus and take the biopsy properly. Which is dead simple when you've got it, and then you just slowly move along. If anything moves or you catch anything moving, you can flick it up, Google, YouTube, whatever. You're going to find something straight away to help you just match it up to a picture.
That's right.
If you're, there's obviously microscopes even now with the cameras and whatnot, not really all that expensive either. So it's quite easy to snap a quick picture, send it to your dealer or whoever's in your support network, and get the problem diagnosed accurately. So you can actually then get the correct medication for the parasite that you're treating.
Absolutely.
And save a whole load of stress and hassle in the process.
It's just so easier just to identify a specific parasite, isn't it? And then you target that with a treatment,
Yeah, this is it. And we know, medications aren't what they used to be. Parasites aren't what they used to be. You do need to target the parasites with specific medications now.
Have you found... sorry, DK Shiro. Have you found the treatments for the parasites? Do you think they're becoming immune? I mean, last year seems to be horrendous. My customers were coming in and saying, "Well, we're buying the treatment, Stu, but it's just not working."
Yeah, I my take on this, because the medications haven't really changed. Flukes and fluke treatments are a bit of a weird one. And they're a completely different beast. But in regards to the main core actual fish parasites, Costia, white spot, all the rest of it. The medications for them tend to work absolutely fine, and they've not really changed if we look at the strengths of them. The bottles have got smaller through all the different legislation, as you'll know. It's not like you can buy drums of the stuff anymore, like Malachi and formalin or whatever. But the solutions are still the same. They've not changed. I think a lot of the problem here is actually preparation for treatment.
Right.
And I think this is a real big sort of issue in that most people are buying it, going home, chucking the medication straight in.
Yeah.
That is not the way to do it.
What would be your advice on the administration side, Rick?
Yeah, so it's to prepare properly. I think there's the two main potential issues here with chemical effectiveness is preparation not being done and not actually really accurately knowing the pond volume. So possibly quite a lot of under medicating going on.
Yeah, and I think that's where the problem lies, isn't it?
We would typically say it's better to be, you know, safe than sorry and be on the underside, but I actually think this is potentially part of the problem. Certainly with fluke medications, because underdosing and consistently sort of underdosing as well and not quite really killing it all off, I think could be, you know, leading to the resistance to the treatment. But preparation, organic loading in a system massively affects chemical performance. You see this most commonly, obviously, with potassium permanganate. You know, if you've used it in the past, you'll know that obviously after a treat of PP or during a treatment of PP, we're looking for the period from when it goes purple where it's active to brown when it's reacted and done. And the period that takes to transition will tell you a lot about the organic loading in your system.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's quite common for some people to tip it in and get, you know, less than an hour, get less than 30 minutes even of reaction time. That is going to do very little for actually wiping out parasites of any sort, because PP is so reactive in the right circumstances. And now I've seen some Japanese use it. You can destroy no endoparasites.
Yes.
You know, I've seen it effectively kill flukes, but we're talking dosages here that you don't really, it's not a conversation I want to get into on here because it's not what you'd want people doing. However, it just goes to show when it's done properly at the dosage and the system prep. So obviously organic loading, it's quite a wise idea before any treatment to do your filter maintenance, get as much debris out of the system as possible, decent bit of a water change to freshen it up, drop the organic load in, and then use the medication. So you're going to
basically, if you're putting your permanganate in and you're losing your colour after 30 minutes, then your organic load is far too high anyway.
It's really high, yeah. So what you can actually tend to find is you're using that first dose. And again, I'm always sort of skeptical with this, but this is in that case where that's happened and it's reacted really quickly. There is on some packets, and this I know throws a lot of people out. There's a thing that says you need to keep it, you know, purple for a certain amount of time.
Yeah,
that's true.
I think Shiro recommend. Sorry, Rick.
Yeah, so I'm not sure which it was, and I don't want to get into that, but I think it's mindful. You do need a good reaction time, but not to keep. I've seen people where they're literally redosing and topping the pond up, and they're sort of in dodgy ground a little bit. So what I would typically do if I'm not happy with the reaction time that I've got, I will use one dose to sort of use that dose to actually cleanse the system, because PP itself will lower the organic load initially because it oxidizes the organics, and then you know if you was reusing PP, I'd do a second dose probably 24 hours later, having cleaned the system through again, and that you're going to get a longer reaction time at that point, and it's going to do more to hit the parasites.
So would you knock your filters out in the process as well, Rick, like flush them through? So you give it the first dose and then you do a lot, 20-30%.
Yeah, this is it, because even after that, you're going to have say, you know, after the PP, there's the manganese dioxide after that's going to be in the water. So it's wise to sort of flush it away a bit, let the pond recover and be in a fresher state, and hit it again so you get a better reaction. And if you know you're suffering with high organic load, you can use a bit of a PP dose, just a light one, to knock them organics back before you use any other treatment. But you've got to make sure you get organic matter out of the pond. A good filter clean before any treatment is an absolute must.
Yeah.
And obviously not looking to interrupt it too much in between. You know, if even if you've got malachite and formalin you're using it, you want to leave that alone in fluke treatments, you know, for a good 4 or 5 days without actually touching the body or diluting anything or mucking around with the system.
Yeah, I mean, so
just doing that quick.
Sorry, Mike.
Just doing that quick sort of nexus clean in between a medication, you know, a couple of days, 2-3 days after a dose, and top it back up. Not where you want to be. Get it all done beforehand, medicate, and then move on.
Yeah. So.
And then dosage. Sorry. So pond volume.
Yeah,
absolutely
the
essential to know that volume. You want to be dosing to the dose, constantly dropping under. is going to lead you problems, you know, where you might be having to redose, which is more stress. Yeah, really important you get to know your pond volume properly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I remember this from my days at the shop. Getting to the bottom of people's pond volumes was an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, because when they give you the calculations, you know that it's not right, because it's the way that they're coming out of it. They're thinking about it. If you're thinking about it, you don't know.
Yeah.
Basically. So
I've spent years watching people pace it out on the shop floor. You know, giving me pond depths based on their own height. It's about up to my waist. It's from here to that wall. That's just like, wow. That's you don't quite realise, you know, how dangerous this can be if we get it wrong. But likewise, how ineffective it's going to be if we get it wrong. And let's face it, medications aren't cheap. So you want to try and get it right first time, so you're not going to have to keep chucking them in.
Yeah.
So just interestingly, I just had a question there. Is it a good idea to reduce feed during treatment? It's absolutely, for me personally, you would stop feeding a day or two before the treatment, just to reduce stress on the fish, and basically, yeah, just let the system be at its best. And depending on how they are, I'd probably, you know, at least for the first, if you're using PP, you're putting food nowhere near, because that's probably going to make the fish bottom, and it'll be a day or two after it you'll come out. If you're using malachite and formalin, again, the first 24 to 48 hours, I'd probably avoid food altogether and look to start bringing it back on after that, because there's a chance a lot of these chemicals are going to knock the system out a little bit as well. So you just want to be careful and ease off, and not be too intense with the food, you know, when their digestive system might not be working as efficiently with the stress they're under from the medication. So always better to ease back with the food before, during, and then slowly build up after, definitely.
Yeah, it's an absolute must. I think keeping your filters clean all the time, and pond hygiene is an absolute must to keep down bacteria issues and parasite issues, you know. When I say to people, when was the last time you cleaned your filters, sometimes I'll go around and do a treatment for them, and you know by the looking at that filter that it hasn't been cleaned for weeks.
Yeah. Do you not think a lot of this, Stu, though, is possibly, again, it's the level of education out there for people? So if we're looking at somebody just starting out today, where is the guys? I mean, we're obviously with what we're doing with this and with Koi Talk, slowly working through all this stuff, but I think it's been so many years without the good information out there at people's fingertips. So it's just obviously taking us ages to sort of build up to the level. But yeah, for beginners, understanding what a good maintenance regime is, they've only got the dealer's sort of opinion to go on, really, because but I think that's for anybody watching this who is starting out, a good filter maintenance regime is essential. Be careful how you do it, and this is really for the beginners stuff as well, because something I witnessed for years, you know, getting the hose pipe out, depending on what the filter system is. This obviously, if you're dealing with a Nexus, or even it's not the case where you're probably going to have the hose pipe all over it, but you know, a lot of people starting out on the sort of box filter route, pressurized filters, because you know we've got people with them. And they use a lot of sponge in them, as you'll know. You can't be putting the hose pipe near these when you're cleaning them out, because that's something I see so commonly. They're building up a system. First 6 months, they've just built up some maturity. Everything's ticking over. Do a filter clean, really thorough. They think it's great because they're blitzing everything down with a hose, getting it all nice and spotless. Next thing they know, the parameters are a mess. They're losing filters because they've destroyed all the bacteria that they've got going. So that's really for the people starting out. If you do manage to stumble across this video, you know, understand what your mechanical and biological part of your filter is. Mechanical, clean it however you wish. You want to get that nice and clean. Or the biological part of your filter, if it is one of these, you know, systems like a box filter or a pressurized filter, anything biological, just rinse that out with some pond water, so you preserve the bacteria on it and don't go killing it with all the chlorines and stuff in the water that are just gonna knock it to pieces, because you will destroy your system very quickly. And then good maintenance regimes. I think it's advisable that at the very least, you know, filter systems want to be intervened once a week, at the very least.
And would you sort of say it's good practice to sort of boost up your system after you've done a medication like formalin and malachite, where the formalin stripped off the bacteria, the aerobic bacteria?
I think it makes absolute sense. There's some great products out there. I'm just trying to think of one. Colombo PSB bacteria, the fresh one, the red one.
Yeah.
Absolutely superb to have on that. It's a great one to have for systems in general, because it's actually a cleaning bacteria that handles ammonia well at the same time. So you can use this stuff on a weekly basis. And I'm not one for many additives, but this stuff over the years has proved to be really, really good. It's a seasonal product. You can't actually get it in winter because it's not manufactured. It don't keep very well. But yeah, throughout the season, you can use that weekly. And even healthy ponds, it puts a real sparkle on the water because it's a very effective cleaning bacteria. But it can also help if you get some sort of ammonia spike just after a treatment. It's going to help level that off and just keep the system ticking over. If it's more severe than that, there's some great gel products out there. The EA filter gel and the Bacta Plus filter gels I find to be great products over the years, in all honesty, for dealing with water quality issues should they arise. So yeah, you're right there, buddy. I think it's wise just to give things a bit of a kick after a dose of medication. Yeah. No harm in it.
So getting back to Japan, as
yes.
I know you'd like to be back out there.
Yeah, soon. I think it's around the corner.
How do they sort of look at their quarantining and before they do shipments? How do they clean their fish up, Rick?
Yeah, that's a good question, Stu. A lot, obviously, there's preparation, so it depends what's happening. Because if I'm out there selecting fish, then fish have to be held somewhere, obviously separately, because they're mine and I've picked them. And this is what this does cause breeders an absolute nightmare. You can probably imagine, because there's a lot of people visiting. If they're doing a lot of selected fish, one of the main options is to use a holding net, but you're limited on time periods because the fish condition can sort of dive off if they're left in the net too long. If they're left in a pond, obviously there's all the things to consider. Feeding them, it might be left in some sort of holding tank. So first thing is obviously prepping them is to get them starved. That is the absolute most important bit. Good period of a week of starvation to really clear the fish out. And ideally what they'll try and do as well is starve them in an environment where they can't eat algae either. So it really, really does clean the gut out completely, because we can't handle that extra surge of ammonia that will come from them being, carrying any sort of food in their gut, getting that bag, pollute them, and you'll have mass wipeouts by the time they're here. So starving's key. And yeah, same as any, most breeders are keeping on top of the health of the fish anyway, just as we would. Some breeders who are really thorough go through a whole sort of process beforehand with just medications, just to make sure everything's nice and clean before the ship and they're in the absolute best health before they're packed. And then packed with fresh water, normally prepared with a solution of salts in there as well. And now we've got the Alfish sachets. Not many people will be used to them unless you're in the trade, but they've been a sort of revelation. They have. So the Alfish keeps the water really, a lot cleaner than it used to, by sort of managing the gas and stuff in the bag. Keeps everything a lot more stable. So long process, but not too dissimilar from any of our own, really. Just got to take a bit more caution because of the journey time.
Is there a sedation process involved for that, Rick, or not?
No, not at all. That's something I know other countries have used that in the past. And I think Japan has used it in the past as well, long before I got involved, to be honest with you, because I've not known it in all the time I've been involved. But it's a weird one when I've seen that. Not one I feel the love for, to be honest.
No, it's I mean, it's a bit different when people buy the fish from a dealer's shop to what we get them through.
It's easy, isn't it? I mean, let's every end of the scale, it's normally 1-2 fish in a bag getting moved for probably an hour or so tops. Overnight courier, obviously a bit more preparation because it can be up to 24 hours with that one. But the Japan stuff, by the time we're looking at worst case end to end, we can be getting on for 48 hours. So it's a huge, and obviously box numbers, we're talking, you packing, 1 or 2 fish in a box. Them same sort of, we're talking 12 to 15 centimetre fish for us. We're packing 70. you know, and that's on a up to 48-hour journey. So everything has got to be, you know, bang on with the preparation to ensure they all get here alive, which most of the time they absolutely do.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had a bad fish from you, mate, to be honest. Everything that's ever been delivered, even if it's gone over the time slightly, you know, it's as fresh as what you put it in the bag.
Yeah, and that's the same from us doing it, from the breeders doing it. Preparation is absolutely key when you're moving them around.
Yeah.
It is.
So what is the most important thing for you for Japan, do you think?
In what way?
As in choosing fish, getting involved with the koi shows out there, like the All Japan show. Have you been shown in that week or not?
Yeah. We had this year. I only managed to get, because again, not being there, it's been quite tough to get hold of, because a lot of the time getting hold of these fish, you've really got to get on breeders' backs. They're not just sort of all out on display as we put them out in this country. You know, this is our best fish here, please buy it. Yeah. They're sort of like hiding all the best fish, and it's an absolute game that you have to play at times to get hold of these things for koi shows. Obviously, it's competitive as well, because I'm not the only person wanting them. So, yeah, a lot of that stuff often gets done when I'm there, because you can sort of get into people and know where to look as well and put a bit of pressure on and get it done. So we have been sort of heavily relying on the few breeders that do sort of offer the fish out by online events and things like that, NND being one of them. Obviously, as you know, buddy, we got some nice Shiros for the All Japan show, one of which you got your hands on. Cracking. But they offer them out quite actively. So yeah, tough. I've seen a lot more. I've been working on it quite hard for the up and coming Tategoi. Got some really stunning fish. Absolute 14 cm Ginrin Kohaku that I'm pretty confident is going to bag a decent award. Got some lovely fish from Dainichi Toyota for the show as well, which I've not shared yet, but they're looking good. Some customers' fish, you know, a couple of stunning pieces down at Okawa going in. So there's quite a lot built up this time, which is quite nice. And NND's just put another round of Shiros out. So yeah, it seems to have been a bit more around this time, but the showing out there I absolutely love. You know, to be competing at that level and even, you know, to win, go in there and get a third prize. I think you really have to appreciate that's the level you're competing at to even get that.
It's the biggest show in the world.
Phenomenal. This is it for all of them, and there's a huge volume of fish that gets entered as well. So it's not like in each division there's not really much choice. Believe me, there's always tons of choice in every division, and yeah, I mean, it's a crazy place. More often than I've seen it in past, I've had fish that I've thought, yeah, confident that's going to do well, and then you see it on the day, and it's just like, wow. Yeah. You know, you've just been top trumps 5 times over. It's crazy competitive, but it's absolutely magic. And I suppose the process of trying to get the fish is good fun, really, to be honest. Frustrating, because obviously you just want to get hold of them, but you really do have to work at these guys. I can't just walk into a breeders I have no rapport with. Doesn't matter how much money I'm prepared to throw at it. I just walk into a breeder I have no relationship with and say, show me some fish for a koi show. They're just going to shut down on you completely.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So it is really a privilege you get after working for a long time with these guys to get into the point of, you know, show me some stuff you've got sort of tucked away that's going to be good enough. And yeah, over time, they show you it and you've just got to be ready when they do, because these things are always costly.
Do you think, because your time served in Japan, fish-wise, that's given you an edge or an advantage over anybody, or do you think that's
completely. It's I mean we're talking, for Christ, 20 odd years now. It's a long time, and obviously we do a lot of business. It's growing every year, and it's at all different levels as well. You know, this is what you've got to look at when you build. It's you know, if you're just trying to build a rapport with a farm that's only high end stuff, that's easy enough. But a lot of these farms have the high end, and they've also got everything else underneath it that they also need to sell and move. Yeah, so it's sort of like you want to be able to help them in all areas, and sometimes, to be honest, you have to get down and dirty with all this cheaper stuff that you might not necessarily want at times in order to work your way up to them obviously saying, you know, or when you ask or they offer, here's this, you might be interested. And you've got to slog away at it.
Yeah.
It really does take time. I never once remember. I mean, when I first met Fujo back in the day, I was already obsessed with his show because I'd seen him in NI magazine for all these years. And yeah, I think after 2 or 3 years, I was just constantly obviously seeing all his best Nisai in this fish house, and I'm like, you know, I'm asking at the time, you know, I'd like to buy your best Nisai, I'd like to do it, and he just completely shrugged it away all the time. And yeah, I can't remember when it was. It must have been after 6 or 7 years of just doing a lot. Eventually, the opportunity sort of came. I remember we did have a conversation about it one time. I can't remember exactly what it is, and he sort of explained his point of view on it. But yeah, it came, and yeah, 6, 7 years. This show he had that was an absolute world. It was one of the best he'd ever produced, and yeah, managed to get my hands on that at that point. And now, if I look at sort of where my relationship is NND, you know, all this time on, it's nice there that I can get access to pretty much just about anything I want to.
I mean, some of the Shiros that come out of NND last year were just amazing, weren't they, really?
They are, buddy. For me now in Shiros, they've become one of the dominant forces. So for the viewers out there that don't know, NND's Shiro lineage they created. So what they basically call their original lineage was a phenomenal bloodline that they put together, but it was a very dominant force in the smaller sizes. So what these fish were doing is they were developing super strong patterns and Sumi really well at a young age, which was exciting because that's how people want to see Shiros.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah, from a koi show perspective in Japan, in them smaller sizes, they went through 2 or 3 years of absolute domination. I mean, we're talking across most of these sizes, even, you know, beating Omasako constantly. Where it was sort of failing a little bit is where the fish were getting bigger because the bone structure wasn't there enough to carry the weight. So they were quite traditional Shiro Utsuri.
Yeah, I mean, normally Shiros do take a few years to sort of come through and sort of to be recognised.
Yeah, they had that, but it was this body issue. So when they were getting size, they were also getting quite weighty underneath, and they weren't carrying the volume easily.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a limitation in the lineage, but regards to, you know, these sort of sizes, the smaller ones, they were superb. And this is actually something we actually did the interview the other day. So it's getting featured in the next issue 12 of Koi Talk magazine, which is our anniversary one. Okay. We've done a full piece on the NND, what's now known as the DK lineage Shiro Utsuri. So for those who don't know it, DK is the initials of the guy who actually owned the parent fish, which is now, it's a 95 centimeter fish from Omasako, absolute powerhouse. It's a stunning fish. That its bone structure is that key factor to it. It's out of this world, and they introduced that 2 years ago now. DK being the owner, Donald Kerr, who's is a quite renowned hobbyist here in the UK. So okay. he allowed them to use the fish, which now resides at NND. They drove all the way to Hiroshima and back, and it was just a crazy journey. But yeah, introduced this fish, and instantly the year after, it rectified the body issue. Just saw the bone structures change straight away. It starts in the head. All of a sudden, we've got this big, broad face. They raised these super jumbo toe-size Shiros that they were insane, really insane. So we're on to the sort of second year of it now, and that's where your fish came from, Stu, as well. And they're starting to pack the size now. These fish, you just see with that different bone structure, they're packing the size, and I think over the next 2 or 3 years, as they refine it more, this is going to be a super dominant Shiro lineage in Japan, full stop.
Do you think that will stay out in Japan this year, Rick?
Yeah, we need to see it. So I had a chat with them this morning just to sort of review where they're at and see if we'll possibly get it to the show this time around, depending on how it's looking.
Yeah, that sounds promising, doesn't it?
Be nice to. It does, mate. Absolutely super. But yeah, this lineage, guys, honestly, there's not mass numbers of them because, you know, even during the breeding and the culling process, they're culling incredibly hard. There's been more this year. It's quite normal as well with new spawnings. First year numbers are lower, and if it is a good set, they'll tend to build over time. But yeah, if you're after a Shiro Utsuri, look about for the NND DK stuff, because they are top, really top. Sumi's very reliable in the UK. You know, even the ones where the Sumi's sat down, in most cases, I am finding it comes up without any issue. It's not always the case with Shiro Utsuri. When you do see underlining Sumi, it doesn't always come up. It's not guaranteed. But yeah, very consistently with NND and Okawa Shiro Utsuri, to be honest with you, I get that very reliable Sumi development. So yeah, look out for them.
Do you think the high GH will help that Sumi come through in your water, Rick?
Sorry, Stu, I lost you there, mate.
Do you think that the high GH in your water quality will promote that Sumi to come out?
No, you see, this is interesting because weirdly, I mean, they say it's been said that, you know, Sumi is affected by hard and soft water. I actually think it's more to do with the underlying buildup of the water, the makeup. So the sort of like the metal structure, how everything else stacks up in the water, which affects the Sumi more. Temperature plays a big part. You know, temperature plays a huge part. People think as well, when it's really cold, Sumi's at its best. Most colour development sort of slacks off a bit when it's cold. One of the best temperatures you can sort of use, you get the fish sat about 18 degrees. Sumi development is fantastic.
I think that's the magical temperature for quite a lot of stuff, Rick, isn't it? Really,
it is. It works well. But yeah, just on the sort of Sumi one, I've seen. So that's just saying, you know, that it's been said Sumi is held back in soft water, and obviously comes through more in hard water. Well, sort of you take that theory. I've got customers in soft water areas that can't keep Shisui and Iowakaba, for example.
Right. Okay.
And so they're in soft water, but the Sumi's coming through and absolutely destroying them. Whereas I keep them. My water's pretty neutral, and I keep them really well.
Yeah, right.
So it's sort of like you know, you get fish in soft water develop really nice Sumi, and likewise it not happen in hard water as well. So I really do believe you've got to go a layer deeper, and it's actually the makeup of the water that tends to do it. Down your end at World seems to be incredible for Sumi. We should probably get that analysed at some point, because I send fish down constantly, you know, all around, and Sumi just flies up down your end at World.
Yeah, I mean, everybody that's almost bought white fish from me at one point, and sort of 10 months down the road, all the patterns coming through lovely, you know, and they just can't believe it. And I think sometimes you get a customer come into you, and you'll try and say that it's a Shiro, even though there's not much on it at all, and they're a bit dubious. But obviously, having this conversation now just gives a little bit of trust to the customer, doesn't it? You know?
I mean, they're good fun. It's obviously Sumi's complex. Everything's complex when you dig into it. It's not just as simple as that's got some underlying Sumi. Oh yeah, that'll come up, because I know that's not always the case, and it can leave you really scratching your head at times, and the time span can be longer, or there's just something in the water either holding it back, not letting it happen. Really complex. So, but yeah, you shouldn't be afraid of them whitewash. It's always good with Shiro Utsuri to take a chance.
That's right.
You know, because the unfortunate thing I find with them, and I don't know if this is what sort of holds back people buying, people generally always want, when they're younger, the nice pattern one, all the black, all the Sumi up, nice pattern, all the traits there, which in a lot of cases, depending on the lineage, NND had a lot that were like that, yes. But generally, when they're like that and they've got the really nice patterns at any size, they carry the price tag.
Yeah, of course.
Because out of an overall spawning, the amount that actually end up like that are so few. So there's always a premium attached to the nice patterned Shiros, which a lot of the time sort of moves them into different price brackets, which can make them sort of unreachable.
Yeah.
And all it is, generally with the ones where the Sumi sat down a bit, dependent on the lineage and the water, like I've already said, NND ones work really well, typically in UK water from all my experience. And the Kawa ones equally the same. In truth, had Omasako over in my water, and they've probably been my least favourite. I absolutely love Omasako. I mean, it's a mind-blowing place to visit. They do Shiro, and to be fair, what that farm has done for Shiro Utsuri is remarkable. Before they created that lineage, you know, Shiro's never used to grow. It was this typical sort of short, stout, stumpy body.
Yeah,
didn't get any mass size on it. Omasako came along, you know, to narrow it right down. They threw a massive shower into the lineage, which you can imagine chucking all that red back in, sent everything absolutely crazy. Refine that out over time, and now, you know, they've got parent fish at a metre mark. They're getting Shiros over the 90 centimetre border quite constantly, of serious quality.
And still retaining good body shape to go with it.
Yeah, honestly, phenomenal. But just not typical, you know, not the standard Shiro body. It's something they've done incredible. The Sumi quality, just everything about them. The first time I went there, it did completely melt my brain. Just insane. And actually, look, they are the foundation of pretty much just about every other Shiro Utsuri bloodline out there today. You know, they're in there in one way or another, whether it be the foundation or a male that's been mixed in or something. Those genetics are around in most of the Shiro Utsuri. The only one I can think of where it's not is the white tiger lineage, which tends to be out there on its own, and maybe one or two others. But yeah, Omasako blood runs through the lot. But yeah, generally playing around with the Tosai is some of the most frustrating results I've had over here in the UK, to be honest with you. Right, Sumi is very hard to read, very difficult. And yeah, to be honest, it's why I don't go chasing after them anymore, because if it came down to buying a super, you know, fish for a collection, yeah, absolutely, I'd buy one out there, superb. And buying it more finished as well would probably be my sort of angst there, because the Sumi can be a bit wild and unpredictable. So at the prices that they can command, I'd want to see a bit more of a finished article, to be honest.
Do you think that, getting back to Shinoda and his jumbo bloodlines that we had through last year, do you think that principle applies to that as well? Or do you think, I mean, I know you were saying that you haven't had anything that's sort of like that from Shinoda for about 18 years. So it's not the sort of fish you're knocking out every year, is it? Sorry,
buddy, connection went terrible again then.
Oh, did it? What part do you miss, Rick?
All of it. Just starting on
sorry,
that one.
Mate. Getting back to the Shinoda side on the jumbo bloodline, do you think that principle applies to his bloodline as well, or do you think that's a totally different concept?
Well, about the Utsuri?
Yeah, the Shinoda on the jumbo side.
Yeah. So Shinoda Utsuri, I mean, we've got the Tosai growing on at the minute, and obviously last year I had the Marasei ones that we pushed on. Again, all the content's on the YouTube channel for that, and this year's been the Shinodas, and so far I'm really seeing why the demand is there so much for the Shinoda ones, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, from what I had off of you a couple of months ago, it's just, although
the little ones,
they're fantastic, mate.
Yeah,
even
they really how the bodies are growing. They're growing really sort of solid already, growing at pace. I mean, I think they arrived at 6 to 12 centimeters. They were when I got them, and the fish in the grow on pond now are averaging 18 to 25 already.
Yeah, you're a little bit further than me. I'm probably 1 to 150.
Yeah,
and it's just incredible to see them grow. You know.
They are. So I'm excited to see where we head with them. And that's just another case of, yes, you know, the Marasei Utsuri are absolutely fantastic, but there's just them traits I'm seeing. Growth-wise, I don't know if the end results on the growth are going to be much different. The body's going to be different, because I'm seeing the way they sort of carry the power a bit differently to the Marasei ones, to be honest.
Okay.
And that's possibly the skin quality is just a little touch above. But yeah, mega. And I think, you know, this is possibly going to come later in life as well, but we'll see where we get. But yeah, Shinoda Utsuri, definitely, yeah, the ones to have for sure.
And do you think when you're in Japan, Rick, when you're sort of driving around, going to various farms, do you sometimes feel that some of the smaller farms that are right up in the mountains can produce some absolute gems?
They can.
Yeah, it's not about all the main breeders all the time, is it? You know, and
no.
People just get brainwashed into that, don't they?
One of the fun bits, to be honest, I mean, one place that always sticks with me is Kansuke. his fish are quite tough to get hold of because it's such a small operation. I mean, he's an absolute legend, to be honest. It's just the passion of him. This whole operation just run by him. Producing kohaku is 90% of what he does. The place is mesmerizing to visit.
Okay.
I mean, his main display pond is just unbelievable. Right. Unbelievable. All sort of sanzai and above. Superb fish. And he's right out the way, you know, right up in mountains. There's only him, Onoyaji there, and Hoshikin's original fish house. Just three fish houses, really, really out of the way. And it's just incredible. The whole experience of visiting there. And that's what I find with most people I've took there in the past as well. Of all the places you'll visit, as impressive as they are, you go to Dainichi and you see the sheer, you know, might and power of the place. It's the charm of a little place like that and what he does that really sort of pulls you in and gets you bought in, to be honest.
I think the passion comes out in the breeder as well, doesn't it? You know,
absolutely.
He's still connected with that fish, isn't he? You know, he's still connected with the bringing on of that bloodline, blah, 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 where you've got, where like Sakai, I don't know. Have they come away from it a little bit, and everything else is run by people?
I think that's interesting that you never. Obviously, commercialism kicks in a little bit, and there's that side to it. But when you actually look at what these guys are doing, the passion, even at Dainichi and Sakai, is still exactly the same. All the same drive is there to keep pushing and keep doing more and doing better. That's what was said about the sort of, you know, driving force when I originally spoke to Shigeru at Dainichi about the Botan line that they created, because it's like, you know, what the hell's this all about? And his whole thought there, we basically said, you know, now we're getting Gosanki to a meter. That's pretty easy, but the next challenge is to start making something that's, you know, growing to 1.3 quite continuously. Yeah. So you've got to have a lot of drive to be, you know, keep tackling things like that, and it's all driven by passion.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and
I think on every level.
That's what keeps the hobby alive as well, Rick, isn't it? I mean, everybody that I come in there will say, this is addictable, this hobby, and I think that is the beauty of it, don't you think? You know,
it is, and there is obviously it's on these guys as well. You know, we rely on these guys to keep it fresh.
Yeah, cool.
Without them coming up with new stuff or pushing the things, you know, there's not even a conversation to be had. Like, you know, holy crap, did you see that? You know, kohaku that's 1.1 meter or something like that. It's just pushing these boundaries all the time, and the new varieties that the guys are creating as well. You know, we need it. Everybody needs it because it keeps it interesting, keeps it alive, keeps it fresh. Yeah. Without them doing it, it'll just stagnate and get boring.
I think the golden corn's quite an interesting subject coming through, isn't it now? Like,
it is.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at that picture on last month's mag, stunning fish.
Yes, that one, the Max Koi Farm one.
That's it.
Absolutely.
The scale perfect, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolute one off that. And again, for me, even, you know, after all, it's something like that comes along that all of a sudden, like, great, I've got something new here to experiment with, something new to learn about, pick it up, because I know full well it's going to be a journey with them over the next few years for me to really get tuned into what they're all about. Yeah, and already having seen it this year, you know, I've had to chat because having no past experience, I've had to challenge my own beliefs, draw from experiences of the varieties in the lineage to predict where they're sort of going to head. And now actually seeing some of them come to fruition is absolutely awesome. So I've actually been through the pond where I've got my collection of them today. And I mean, there's probably overall, I mean, we had 200 fish, 200 of them last year, I think, altogether. I've probably got about 10 pieces I'm still going to have my hands on for next year, white type and yellow type. But watching how it's sort of happening, you know, with this Kanoko in particular, obviously where you see it with the red, you know, these things are starting off as a heavy, you know, where it looks like the whole body is ginrind. And what's actually happening is these have got, even just at Nisai, so sitting about 40 centimeters, the yellow type, we're now starting to see the scales sort of isolate a little bit and seeing the red Kanoko and the ginrin's actually isolating with it as well. Yeah. Absolutely phenomenal to see it happen and what's going off. So even for me, I want all these new things coming through. It's new challenges and it's good fun.
you've got to have some forward thinking as a breeder, haven't you? To sort of get that image in your head and then think, right, do you know what? I'm going to keep on punching away at this until I get it exactly how I want it. You know.
I mean, how many people do you would dedicate? I can't remember what it is from the video he did. It was something like 12 years from having the vision in his head. 12 years of plugging away, knowing you've only really got that one shot every year as well to give something a try.
Yeah, of course.
12 years. I just don't think culturally, you know, outside of Japan, many people have got the patience.
But I think, don't you think Japan? I mean, when you look at the bonsai situation as well, the patience and passion for that,
exactly,
very similar to the fish. You know,
there seems to be a lot. It is cool that some of the things they do and raise and the standards they do it to is all because of the patience and the way they approach things and look at things. There's all these old traditionals, sword making, and all this other stuff that they do.
Yeah.
You can see why Koi sort of ended up there, because that process is a really tedious one. You know, look back at the process.
I think that's unique to Japan, isn't it? The culture out there, Rick, don't you think?
Yes, completely.
You know, they're a very humble race, aren't they? You know?
Yeah, you look at what it takes, like you say, you know, to raise a bonsai tree up. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it's a lifetime affair, really. But
it is, buddy. Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
So we're probably just going to pull a few questions up now. Stu, to be honest, you obviously hang about. Well, if you can contribute anything to these, feel free. Yeah. Do you want to hit us with something, Steve? Seeing issues with flukes on incoming inquiry from Japan. What treatments do you use?
Rick, I just got to have a wee, mate.
Yeah, no worries, mate.
Don't do that.
Right, guys. So flukes, no, not necessarily coming in from Japan. It's not something we're seeing crazy problems of. It is it's just a problem, full stop. You know, they're quite common at cropping up, and treatments are struggling. Unfortunately, it's off-the-shelf treatments that are available. There's nothing else out there I can really recommend. To be honest, an old school method for people that's really struggling, and you do want to be careful with this. I've used it in the past when I've had really stubborn fluke cases, is you can actually use formaldehyde on its own as a treatment. Again, you want some good prep, and just be mindful it's a very strong treatment, but it can be really useful if you have got those super stubborn fluke strains. But otherwise, I'd recommend obviously trying different medications. If you've been using one for a while, you might want to swap it up. But likewise, as I said at the beginning of this episode, make sure that you are doing the preparation properly and you dose it accurately as well, because that's going to be absolutely essential. So I hope that adds a bit of clarity to that one. What else have we got, Steve? Are there any pond solutions where there are no drains nearby, but electric and water are still available? I don't know if I'm missing some. How are you reading that one, Stu?
Yeah, that makes sense to me, that.
No, we'll move on from that one, Steve, unless you can get a bit more clarity. There's a good one. Seafish advertisers Tategoi, are they one step above the run-of-the-mill koi? Right, so I've had a rant about the other side to this thing before. Tategoi, Tategoi, two words in the Japanese koi industry that sort of made their way over here. Now, I'm not going to get too much into Tategoi rant. If you want to scroll through the YouTube channel, sort of way back, I did have a rant about the overuse of the word Tategoi, probably worth a bit of a watch. But just to clarify on the Tategoi side right now, that is basically a breeder's got Tategoi and Tategoi. So when he's doing a selection, Tategoi is the fish he wants to keep. Tategoi is what he chooses to sell. So basically every other fish that's on general sale on the market is Tategoi. It's just that what you tend to find is there's different levels, as there even is with Tategoi, to be honest, but there's different levels of Tategoi. So all the smallest sort of 10 to 12, 7 to 9 centimetre koi coming over are technically Tategoi, because during some selection, they've been rejected and basically put up for sale. So that is the real definition of what it is. How it's used in a marketing perspective is that Tategoi has sort of been used for the later selection fish. So this is where the selection gets closer to the breeder's final one before they move a koi to the mud ponds for the summer growing, for example, which basically would be a higher level Tategoi, because sometimes some of these fish just get rejected at that point because the breeder's got a quota of 300 fish and that's all they're going to keep. So if they get to 301, 302 instantly, those fish are being offered for sale. So that's where you see the term generally advertised, and the context in which it's being used is basically saying these are Tategoi, Kohaku, for example, and they're just a higher level of Tategoi. Doesn't
Still
really
good fish,
mean,
though, Rick, don't you think?
yeah, well, let's face it, at all levels. That's why I think the best advice I can give is really when you're seeing, if you use the Tategoi, if you see the Tategoi word used, again, please watch the video, guys, but probably, you know, take a wide berth to that. But Tategoi, Tategoi, just forget the label, ignore it, and look at the fish in front of you, because this is what it all comes down to. You know, the Tategoi thing, very confusing. Yeah, and probably worth having a full video on at some point, to be honest with you, to give more clarity on it. But yeah, from a Tategoi perspective, it's literally, from a breeder's perspective, it's just the fish they offer up for sale. It's just they come in different levels. And yeah, generally you see the word used when people are buying around April, May, that sort of time, all the final selections, quite a higher level fish, because they've obviously been through and been kept for a number of selections. It's just at the final one they get dismissed. That's generally when you see it advertised. So you could probably use it as a guide to sort of, you know, let you know at what point of the selection they've been offered for sale. But generally, I'd just ignore it, to be honest with you. So I hope that does clarify that one. And again, watch that video. It was quite a good rant, because someone had really got under my skin at that point with the overuse of that Tategoi word. And I just couldn't leave it alone, to be honest with you. So it's worth a watch. Worth a watch. What else have we got, Steve? Absolutely not. No, I wouldn't turn the filters off for a treatment, because simple fact is, you know, some of the parasites are free swimming. Trichodina, Costia, the sort of cysts from white spot when they're, you know, sort of exploding out, all could be in your system. So you need to medicate through the whole lot there, and make sure you're getting the parasite wiped out. Which could be, if people are doing that, that could be a reason why parasites aren't clearing up as well, because you need to get them out of every inch of the water body. So wherever that pond water is running, that medication needs to be running over it as well. No doubts in my mind with that one. I never turn filters off. Obviously, it can be damaging for the bacteria, yes, but I think, as we've discussed, you're better to let that, you know, we need to get it wiped out of the water body and then recover the filters after. You're never going to completely destroy the filter. You just generally, in a mature system especially, you're just going to knock it back a little bit, and that's quite easy to recover, especially in sort of like the warmer water temperatures as well. So yeah, let's go with a couple more, Steve, and we'll probably wrap up for tonight. Do you gain anything from feeding sinking food? Do you have much request for sinking food, Stu?
Only in the winter time, really. Going into December, coming into early spring. When the fish, if they're not gliding about, they're coming out that door and see whether, if you're not heated, they've been sitting on the floor. It's. I mean, the object of the exercise with Koi is to bring them to the surface for appreciation. But looking at the time of year, temperature related, I would probably use a sinking pellet when they're coming out of winter myself. And then bring
for me, that it's quite for me, using sinking from a growing perspective, I do deem it as a bit of a professional product, and for the reason being, when you're using sinking and you want to use it really effectively, I mean, to be fair, I've only used it in one pond. I generally sort of use a pond every year, playing around with it. This year, not really noticed any major benefits on sinking versus floating with the Saki Akari. But yeah, sinking, you've really got to be on the ball, because especially when we're feeding high quantities, and this is what I even found, and bearing in mind there's people on site all day, every day, it's really hard to monitor the consumption. Because before you know it, with the currents in the pond, you know, I was constantly finding, even though we're observing it, currents in the pond, very quickly the water was, the food was getting moved towards the drains for a start, which was a problem. And yeah, unless you're there constantly, it's not like, 10 minutes later you can come back and see what's still floating on the top. By then it's more than likely been pulled into a pump or pulled into a drain, possibly sitting in your pipe runs for a while. And just the whole thing's a lot harder to gauge. So unless you are really, really on it with the stuff, there's a chance it's actually going to become more of a problem than a positive. One of the real key things here is that I know a lot of breeders who use sinking foods. It's primarily used in mud ponds, and that's for predator prevention. So it makes complete sense. They want to keep fish away from the sides of the ponds where predators can get them, and obviously away from the surface as much as possible. So that's why sinking food is used there. But breeders have techniques as well to gauge, how well the fish are actually eating and adjusting the feeding levels. Because once that's gone into a mud pond, they've no way of actually knowing at that time if it's all gone. They're just sort of assessing the pond level. The way they actually do that, and this was, such a simple one really when it got explained. It's again when I was out there working one summer, they gauge the feeding levels by how muddy the mud pond actually looks, which seems a crazy thing to say, but when the koi are actually rummaging in the base looking for food, it sends the clouds of mud up, which you can see that the pond is really clearly quite disturbed at that point. When the feeding sort of calmed down, so basically when they're supplementing the feed and filling the fish up more, they don't rummage as much, which calms the water down. So that's the very basic technique they use to gauge feeding. Nothing scientific. It's just when they're seeing big sort of plumes of mud coming up, they know the koi are rummaging a lot. And yeah, they tend to increase the manual feeding until that eventually calms down. They're a lot happier. But yeah, from a sinking food perspective, that's the main reason that's being used there. And then some breeders, such as Momotaro, I do know use it quite a lot. But they actually, within the systems, incorporate platforms into the ponds where they can actually monitor feeding properly. So in the huge pond, the indoor pond they've got, there's a huge shallow area where the food is put in and fed. And yeah, that's so they can monitor exactly what's going off at that feeding. If it's uneaten, they can monitor the time period for eating, and it allows them to closely observe at the same time as well. So you can just see there's very specific reasons, and each, as far as integrating something into the pond design to use sinking food effectively. So yeah, my opinion in general, we're better off sticking with floating. To be honest, because I just don't think it's that easy for people to monitor sinking food properly. So I've just seen one question come up from Terry. As far as I know, Ricky, can you confirm correct? Well, they live for around 20, 30 years to the best of my knowledge. I've seen that crop up a few times. Koi can go on for years and years. You'll probably know that you've been probably at it longer than me, Stu. They can go on forever and a day.
Yeah, 40, 50 years is not uncommon, but that all depends on the husbandry of the animal all the way through its life.
Yeah, unfortunately for me, I just hate to think how it looked at that kind of age, to be honest with you. I think this is the thing. It's how long they live for, but it's how they end up looking after that time period. I've seen parent fish in Japan 20, 30 years old quite commonly, but they're absolutely nothing to look at. Absolutely disgusting at times, to be honest. It's only that the breeder knows the fish and what the fish was as to why they're still hanging about and being moved. But yeah, in the right conditions, they tick on for a while.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. What would you say is probably be the best age for fish to reach their full potential, Rick?
Yeah, so I mean, interestingly, I'm probably seeing a lot these days. They're hitting their peak at possibly 7, 8 years old. If we're looking at the age of grand champions, it could possibly be anywhere from sort of like 6 to 8 years old, which is more the sort of modern way. If we look years back, the whole sort of industry at the times where Matsunosuke Sankey was super prominent and other bloodlines, it was all about longevity. So fish not even hitting the peak until the 10 years plus, and then actually maintaining that quality for a long time. That was the epitome of a top bloodline back then. We do still see it, but what you can tend to find is, through raising techniques and some of the bloodlines, they do tend to fall off the cliff a little bit sooner. in this day and age, which, you know, everything changes. But you see overall the size has got bigger, raising techniques have got bigger. There's a loads of pluses to sort of offset that. And there's still a lot of them bloodlines out there as well that do take a long time to peak. Ikarashi Kazuto was one. You know, we had that mindset. Obviously not with us anymore, but yeah, his whole thing was about longevity of quality. So that's why he had, you know, really limited raising periods. He was always one. He gave them a full fast from being harvested in October through till April, because you'd see these fish harvested and look incredible. You'd see them sort of 5 months later and wonder what the hell he'd done to them. All the body disappeared. They were looking absolutely shit. Skin was shining. But that was about it, really. And then all of a sudden they go into a mud pond, and 6 months later, again, you're absolutely blown away. These massive growth spurts and just looking absolutely insane. So, yeah, and his fish, again, would go on. But, you know, you'd look at something that was 10, 12 years old and think it was 4 years younger. So, you know, that was his whole mentality, and it worked really well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there we go. I think we'll wrap it up at that for now, to be honest with you, because I need to make sure I'm getting plenty of sleep at the minute with mania that's going on this week. But yeah, once again, thanks for everybody for joining in. And just one last one. Again, use the code, get signed up to the magazine. If you're not, great project to support. And yeah, thank you all for tuning in. We will be back next week. Oh, one last plug. Again, we're finding people's being a bit shy. We want to get you guys booked in and get you on here. It's great that you're firing all the questions in. Happy just to sit here and talk through them. But it's much better to have a dynamic conversation where it can sort of be talked out and yeah, you know, really explore the issues in depth. So please, guys, get in touch. You're just having a conversation with me on screen. It's really not that intimidating. It's dead simple. Access it through phones, computers, whatever it is that's got a front-facing camera. We can make it work. So yeah, please get in touch so we can carry this on and keep getting information out there for people. That's it for me, and I'll see you guys next week.